You're listening to the one and only WMPG W281AC Gorham, Portland. We are Southern Maine and Eastern New Hampshire Community Radio, broadcasting live at 90.9 and 104.1 FM from the University of Southern Maine and streaming on the web at WMPG.org. My name is Deb Danger, and I'm here with Mr. David Unger. Next up is Nonprofit Insider. A little music here. Hey, while we're listening to music, David, how about the weather?
Well, just look outside. It's absolutely breathtaking today. 75 degrees. Tomorrow it's going to be 77. Sunday, maybe a cloud or two, 75. But go out and enjoy the weather. Went for a great bike ride this morning. No humidity, and let's get going.
Sounds great.
Chasing sunsets, growing, I've grown too big for tourist towns. Yeah, I might leave a few friends behind, but these weights are tying me down. I can't be sure that there's something in store.
Welcome to Nonprofit Insider. My name is David Unger. I'm pleased to be hosting a show with executive directors and key people of local nonprofits. I've worked in the nonprofit world for over 30 years, and in those years I've realized that the majority of the community does not know about the organizations that provide critical services and benefits to the community we sometimes take for granted. This is a chance to hear about the organizations that touch so many in our community. Today's show is kind of interesting. Not kind of, it is interesting. We're going to go live at the very beginning, and then we're going to cut to a recorded portion, and then we're going to go live at the end of the show for about another 10 minutes. So let's hear Nonprofit Insider. Insider is pre-recorded. Today we have a couple of very special gentlemen in the studio with us. John McGovern, who's chairperson of the board of directors of Speaking Up for Us, and Tyler Engels of Speaking Up for Us. He's been on the board for about 6 years now. But before we get started in the interview, I really need to disclose to all our listeners that I'm currently the interim executive director of Speaking Up for Us, and that's how I got to meet you guys. And I've been working with the board and the group since January. So it's important for our listeners to understand that. So welcome to the show, guys.
Welcome.
Good. So, John, can you kind of explain to our listeners who may not know what Speaking Up for Us is, what it is, and what you do?
Well, Speaking Up for Us is we have local chapters in our area, and we also have the board of directors that.
Before you continue with the breakdown of it, but there's something very unique about everybody who belongs to Speaking Up for Us.
People that belong to Speaking Up for Us are people with disabilities that can speak up for themselves and be different from a normal person that can do things for themselves. That some people that will need help and some people that don't need help, and makes it a little easier on them so that they can venture out and do what they want to do and such.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand this correctly. Speaking Up for Us is a group of people who have adults who have disabilities, mainly developmental disabilities.
Yes.
And besides what you're getting with your service providers and your jobs and everything else, Speaking Up for Us helps train people with disabilities to be self-advocates for themselves.
Yes.
To speak up for things that they want and believe in, and sometimes need a little more encouragement in helping get that done. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you started to say there's a board of directors.
There's a board. With the board of directors is we have people that also have developmental disabilities, and they get elected from they go through a process where they have to go through the application process before they can be elected onto the board.
So the entire board is developmentally disabled?
Yes.
Okay.
And the people that are on the board usually are part of the application process, except for the ones that are coming off.
Okay.
Eh.
So is the board made up of representatives from different regions?
Yes, they are.
So how many regions are there?
There's 6 in all.
6. And there's about, if I remember correctly, there's about 14 chapters. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
And Tyler, you've been doing a lot of work representing the chapters on the board. Is that correct?
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about what that's like?
I've represented like 3 different chapters. It's very challenging because each and every chapter has their own unique way of running their chapter.
Okay, great. So before we went on the interview, I asked both of you individually and as together to see if it would be all right if I ask you some personal questions about your disability, and both of
Okay.
you agreed. You both have developmental disabilities.
Yes.
Yes.
What was it like growing up in school and everything?
Well, I didn't get mine until I entered middle school. I didn't have it when I was growing up at all. But with me getting it at that age, around 11 or 12, it was kind of hard, and I knew things would be different, and I knew there would be some new things for me to try down the road. And the way it's been going, it's been great, and I've had people picking on me using the R word a lot, and I don't like that because I just want people to call me by my name so I can be who I am, so I can stand up for myself.
Okay. And Tyler?
In high school, I was on the wrestling team, and I was bullied for like about 2 years until I started to win a lot of meets, and basically about that point I was accepted by the same team.
So you earn their respect.
Right. It was very difficult.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you face right now. John, you have a job,
Yes, I do.
and Tyler, do you?
No.
But you're looking for a job.
Right.
Okay. So what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in the workforce? Tyler?
For me, it's very hard having autism, that I'm very mechanically minded, but how do you put that into a job where it's only part-time?
Okay.
Very difficult.
Yeah. So, and John, you work where?
I work at Miller Drug. It's a drugstore in Bangor, and when the boss that I had originally owned the place wanted somebody with a disability, and he wasn't, he wanted somebody with a disability so that, because he wasn't going to put anybody down, because he knew that the person with a disability could do the job probably a lot better than a person that didn't have a disability, and he always helps you along the way, and he always, if you have like any questions or anything, he can help you in every way. But since over a year and a half ago, he sold the business to Affiliated, that it's owned by
It was bought out.
and it's not been the same since he's been gone, and they just pushed him right out, and then they want to take over the business.
So do you think your job might be in jeopardy?
It might be somewhere down the road.
Well, that would be a shame. So do either one of you receive state services?
I do, and I use them a little bit because I don't use them as often, but they're there when I need them and such.
Okay. So Tyler, do you receive state services?
I get about 25 hours of staffing a week. I have a reading disability, so it can be very challenging to be out in the community.
Okay. We're going to take a small break in about a minute, but I just want to talk about the state services for a minute. One of the things that I've been hearing, and maybe you guys can confirm this or not, and this has come up at the board meeting, is that sometimes the state doesn't necessarily listen to what you need, but they tell you what they want you to do. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Yes.
So, go ahead.
The government can be very much could be in a way a bully with the services.
So instead of sitting down with you and saying, okay, what would you like to do and how would you like to move forward with this, they're basically saying to you, here are the services that we're going to give you, take it or leave it.
They have sometimes rough guidelines and sometimes like rules that they want us to follow, but then they cut them in the future, and it doesn't work out for us.
Okay. Well, good. Well, not good, but it's a good entree into our breaking point. So, as I explained to you, every week we ask our guests a trivia question, and both of you gentlemen are on a roller derby team. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That's correct.
And the name of your team, Tyler?
The Not So Jolly Rogers,
And they're located in?
Portland.
And John?
Mine is the Katahdin Roller Kings, and they're located in Bangor.
All right, so today's trivia question has to do with roller derby. You ready?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you the question. I'm going to do my break, and then we'll come back. When did roller derby originate? This is David Unger on Nonprofit Insider, and we're on WMPG. And today I'm talking to John McGovern, who's the chairperson of Speaking Up for Us, and Tyler Engels, who's a board member of Speaking Up for Us. Today's trivia question was, when did roller derby originate?
Roller derby originated back in 1935.
I was going to guess somewhere in the 70s.
Did you look that up?
I've known that for a long time.
It's 1935, according to the Roller Derby Hall of Fame. Sports promoter Leo Seltzer, looking for attractions to fill the Chicago Coliseum, created the Transcontinental Roller Derby, an endurance race featuring a team of one man and one woman roller skating on a banked track in a mythical race from one coast to another. Good job. You're one of the few guests who've gotten it correct. So let's talk a little bit about Speaking Up for Us and some of the work that you're doing throughout the state. Besides working with the individuals, members of Speaking Up for Us in the statewide conference and the training programs, you also advocate for situations that come up for either board members or other SUFU members or Speaking Up for Us members. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
So we had a situation at the last board meeting. John, can you explain it a little bit, what one of the members brought to the board to work with?
He had brought up this issue where he was living, and they said that he could do it, and then
So he's living in a nursing home.
yes,
Okay. He's about mid-age.
yeah,
And they said that he could move into his own individual apartment, right?
correct.
So what happened then?
Then they said, after he'd done all the work, he said, sorry, but it's not going to happen, and it put his hopes down, and he wasn't very happy.
So they took him through the whole process of
Mhm.
finding an apartment,
Yes.
setting a move date,
Mm-hmm.
getting everything set up, and then they said that the state can't support him for the care that he needs.
Correct.
So what did the Speaking Up for Us board, SUFU is the acronym, what did the Speaking Up for Us board find wrong with that?
What we found wrong with it is that we said that it isn't right because you're putting down somebody that has a disability, and he's been wanting to move out for a long time, and it's been really frustrating, and he's been struggling with it all his life, and he's been wanting to move out.
So the SUFU board is going to take this issue to the Maine Developmental Disabilities Council
That's correct.
for not to change his situation because his services can't be changed, but so other people wouldn't experience that sort of have that kind of experience. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So not only do you work to support individuals, but you also work to support all people with disabilities throughout the state.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you find any of this frustrating?
Not at all.
No? You find it rewarding?
Yes.
What part's rewarding for you?
Trying to help everybody that's out there that don't know what's going on, and trying to help them out.
So there are a lot of people with disabilities who don't really understand some of the services and benefits and what's available to them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So Speaking Up for Us has a critical role with that.
Correct.
Tyler, what would you see some of the frustrations?
There's a lot of trajectory. There's a lot of trajectory in society about what society thinks that we are, and it's not really true.
And can you give a specific example?
They don't think that we're capable, and we have a lot of different capabilities. It's just sometimes finding them and hooking them up with a job, and how that works is sometimes very challenging.
So you find that sometimes people, they hear the stereotype disabled and they put you in a category versus sitting down and talking with you and figuring out what you want to do.
Yes.
Huh, that's kind of interesting. Do you feel that way too, John?
Yes, I do.
So basically, if you were to give a message to our listening audience, what would it be?
Don't give up. Keep trying.
Yes.
Okay, that is absolutely great. And I have to say, I've been involved with you, as I said earlier in the show, since January, and I am thoroughly impressed and blown out of the water sometimes with what is happening and watching the board evolve and make their own decisions. I mean, you're doing your own check signing now. You have budgetary responsibilities, and you're attacking each issue at a board level for the statewide population with disabilities. I think a congratulations goes out to both of you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
If you had to tell somebody who knew nothing about Speaking Up for Us, what Speaking Up for Us means to you in 15 seconds, what would it be?
I would tell them that Speaking Up for Us is about something that you can do and accomplish on your own.
Great. Tyler?
You could be role models with people with disabilities.
That's great stuff. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Nope.
That's unusual. Tyler?
I'm all set.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you both for being on the show. You were great guests. And hopefully our listeners out there got to learn a little bit more about you, people with disabilities, and Speaking Up for Us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
David, that was something else. I learned so much from that interview. That was really great.
It caught me off guard. I mean, they said some things that I was not expecting.
Like what?
Well, at the end, when they said, all we want is a chance. And the more I work with the disabled community, the more I'm sensing that a lot of people say that they're giving them a chance.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, listen to what they want to do. Understand what their needs are and how they can help you.
Yeah, you can understand in some ways, that they want to do as much as they can for themselves. They want to work.
Right.
They want a job that uses their skills. I mean, there's no difference there from Tyler looking for a job and me looking for a job.
Oh, absolutely.
Not at all. And it's, I want to use my skills, and he wants to use his skills and the problems he's having with that and so forth. But there's this other edge to it, though.
But there's a part that I don't think a lot of people understand and realize. And again, this is, I'm going back to my disclaimer, this is my opinion and not MPGs or USMs. But there's one SUFU member who had a great job. His parents passed away and left him a small trust fund. The state said to him, you either have to quit your job or not take the trust fund to receive benefits. I mean, talk about double-edged swords. Here's a person working, putting money into the economy, and then they said, you can't do it.
Amazing. That's that double-edged sword business. It happens a lot. I mean, it happens in my world too.
Right.
And it's almost like you're setting people up to fail.
Absolutely. And you give them the wording message, but when it comes down to reality and putting it into play, sometimes it doesn't come out that way.
Yeah. Well, I was also I was struck by John's comment that he wasn't he wasn't born disabled, that he came that he acquired his disability at some midpoint. I mean, he seemed like a young guy to me. So everybody's a young guy to me at this
well,
point.
Look at me.
I know you. Well, you don't look like a, I mean, well, all right. You're a little bit younger than me, maybe.
No, I'm older than you.
Are you older than me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I feel much better now.
Okay.
But he seems to be like I'm going to guess 30s or something. And he spent half of his life being able-bodied, and he acquired his disability at midpoint and had to adjust to that.
I mean, I just
and we don't, excuse me, just wanted to say, I don't typically think of that like a head injury that comes along, or some kind of accident of some sort, and suddenly you're thrust into the world of disability.
Right. And, looking at it from the nonprofit side, what are the organizations out there that he can benefit and grow from? And Speaking Up For Us is one of those organizations. I mean, and the more I'm digging into this and learning about it, it's just amazing that, when Tyler said, just give us a chance.
Yes. Oh, I know. It's, I'm so glad you had those guys on. I mean, they could do it better than they said what needed to be said, and I could hear it in a way that I wouldn't have heard it before.
Right.
Other ways.
And these guys are just a small representation of the board of directors, and each board member can tell their story in their own way.
Yeah.
We had one Speaking Up For Us member who came to us and talked about that the state was saying, and again, these are my opinions only, that the state was saying, well, here are the services you should have. And she was saying, well, these are the services I want to have for me to grow and be a better person. And they got into this conflict with the state. I mean, some stuff just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
And there are a lot of great people at all levels of the state and the organizations who get this and understand it and are working towards that goal. But it's a long, slow transitional process.
My experience with bureaucracy and stuff is that the cookie cutter is the preferred method of dealing with things. It's so much easier to fill out Form 952 than to create something that's not on a form.
Right.
It's so much easier, and because there's so many restrictions and regulations and so forth. And so,
if you go to Speaking Up For Us website, sufumaine.org, and look at the training video tab, we've put together a personal plan where the individual can develop the plan of what they want to do and the goals that they want to achieve.
That's wonderful.
And it really is something for us to begin looking at as an overall, because we all make decisions about our own lives, and why shouldn't everybody?
Yeah, of course. Well, that brings us to the obvious question then. If these folks are running their own board, and what's your role there as a non-disabled person? What do you do?
I'm the executive director, and
so what is your role? Is it really an ED, or is your board? Go ahead. You know where I'm going.
My board is great. We've basically said to them that, okay, you're going to have to make some decisions. And my job is, as I do with any board that I've ever worked with, is to put the pros and the cons out there, help them understand what the decision and the ramifications are, and, make sure that they understand what they're deciding and put it to a vote. And we do our voting a little differently now.
How?
Instead of doing, okay, all in favor, raise your hand, we go around the table and ask people for their verbal vote and make sure that they understand what the vote is.
Wow. Can you imagine if all boards did that?
In all honesty, I think it's something every executive director should try, because it puts people to the task to say, this is why I'm not doing it. And it may spark some other, discussions about certain things.
And, this is what I understand I'm voting on.
Right.
Bottom line, that's it. This is what, no, that's not what we're voting
on. And I've done that with many boards with development plans and things like that. Okay. By you voting for this, you realize that you're now committing to raise money.
Right. And these are the possible ramifications of that decision.
Right. And if we understand that, then let's vote on it.
Yeah.
And again, it's putting the expectations out there and making sure people understand them.
That's great. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I like that.
It is. It's a really... And we have what we call our aha moment at the beginning of the board meeting. And instead of doing a 2-day board retreat, we spend about 15, 20 minutes and do a training program about what it means to be a board member. What do decisions mean?
So it's embedded in the meeting.
It's embedded in the meeting, and then we come back to the meeting, and John has been great when we set up the agenda. And we go back to the meeting and talk about, okay, let's refer back to the aha moment. And is this something that fits into that? And how do we make our decisions based on that?
That's great.
So the goal would be that they would be able to take it one step further.
That's really amazing. I noticed somebody's trying to call us, but we're not taking calls today. We don't have quite enough time, so I'm so sorry. But you can let's see.
You can put your comments up on
There you
the
go.
Speaking Up for Us Facebook page.
Well, how about Nonprofit Insider?
Or you can send the comments to npi@davidunger.net, and we will post it up on the Facebook page, and we will try and answer any questions that we can via email.
That's right.
npi@davidunger.net.
UNGER.
Yes.
Yes, there we go. So you mentioned that you were moved by the closing comments, as was I. But were there any other surprises during the interview? I mean, I know you know these fellows personally, semi-personally anyway. But was there anything that you learned that
There was absolutely no hesitation in John's answer to the trivia question. I mean, he knew that right.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with that he knew exactly when roller derby had been found. I would have said 70s. I went
Right.
with Tyler's guess.
Right. But no, obviously I talked with both John and Tyler beforehand, and we talked about the interview process and some of the questions I was going to ask. I was very impressed with their honesty and their openness
Yes.
about things. And the first time I met the Speaking Up for Us board, that was something that was very, very evident, that they're very upfront and they're very straightforward about what their needs are. And the question is, how do we work with them to accomplish their needs?
Well, as an executive director, I have one question that David Unger usually asks other executive directors on Nonprofit Insider. And what is funding aside?
Funding aside.
What is one of the important challenges, or what do you want everybody to know about the organization, or the challenges the organization faces?
Give us a chance. We're changing some ways that we're doing things. We're working with our chapters a little differently now. We've changed some of our membership standards. And our board has gone through a very extensive 2-day workshop to work through some of this stuff, where we were always the nickname the little sibling of everybody else, but we're our own agency. And we really want to just take it from there.
Excellent. Well, thank you. This has been great. So who do you have on next week for Nonprofit Insider?
Well,
I am curious.
Was that a lead-in loaded question?
Oh, it was pretty obvious. Yeah, It's a
Okay.
slam dunk.
Next week is the second week of our gubernatorial candidates, where we're going to be interviewing Governor Paul LePage live on Nonprofit Insider next Friday at 1 o'clock. And I just lost my notes here. The music appears courtesy of Mike Hubbard. You can find it on www.michaelhubbardmusic.com. Check out Mike's website to see where he's playing this weekend. Thanks to Deb Danger, NPI's executive engineer. You can catch Deb on Morning Street Fridays at 6:30. If you know of an agency that would like to be on Nonprofit Insider, please email me any questions at npi@davidunger.net. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, folks.